is Spilos. Now, I've gotten to know Spilos well in the last couple of weeks, and as an active senior member of IEEE, I think he's the only one that has like single name status, like Elvis, Sinatra, Spilos.
That's true, by the way.
I don't know what he's going to do on the podium, but he needs to move his hands. So be careful, Spilos. You don't want to fall down. I love to speaking to Spilos. He has a lot of war stories. He knows where the bodies are buried. He knows how to get things done. I think he was at the first Olympics back in year 0. I'm not sure he ran the marathon, but I think he was there and was complaining about something and had to bribe somebody as well. Without further ado.
Thank you. For the 30th anniversary of the CQR and also the session on legacy network systems, I thought that it may be of interest to all of you if I give you some reflections on the reliability issues we faced in the last 20 years that I was involved with world-class events, Olympic Games. So next, yes. Quickly, world-class events, regardless of the host city, become the largest telecom project ever undertaken for a single event. I keep saying that every time because this is true, no matter which the host city is. Second, the role of telecommunication becomes one of the critical differentiators for winning a bid or host large sports events. So a lot of thought is concentrated, okay, how we're going to present to the International Olympic Committee what you're going to do with telecommunications. It's a highly complex, yet extremely reliable and robust the telecommunication network that is needed to deliver broadcast, and I repeat, broadcast images to the world. Now, the International Olympic Committee finally, after so many decades, they produced this Olympic Games framework for the 2024 Olympic Games. And there they said telecommunications technologies should be at current international standards. And the mission critical component of Olympic Games technology delivery is the integration and distribution of time, scoring, and results. Great. Let's see now, okay, what the Olympic program directors from the different Olympiads, they told us along the way. For example, continue full network reliability support for existing customers while absolutely fulfilling the telecommunication needs of the mega event. Full network redundancy ensuring a constant feed from the venue to the international broadcast center. Massive upgrades of hardware and software, and they keep telling you that 100,000 miles of fiber optic cable, etc. Everything we build has to have a planned reuse. And I'm going to come back to that. And we are putting hundreds of people years for this effort, and this is only for the 17-day event. Oh my God, I mean, how am I going to find all this budget? But volume isn't the key issue here. Strategic network reliability is because there is no tolerance for failure at world-class events. Now, let me give you now my personal perspective, how I lived over those years this dilemma with fighting on behalf of the Grand Telecom sponsors against the International Olympic Committee's more or less school of thought that if it's not 2 years, at least okay, that we're using this technology, I don't want to see that technology in the Olympic Games. And back in 1996, as Bell Communication Research, Bellcore, we did a lot of work to introduce the SONET links in the Olympic network. Now, Bell South back then, they were putting millions and millions of dollars on this Olympic network, not only for the 17 days, but also to go and market downtown Atlanta to the banks and the rest. Guess what? You are now on the ex-Olympic network, and you have to pay extra for the telecommunication services. So, believe it or not, we fought tooth and nail back then to convince the International Olympic Committee that this is reliable architecture. And then we introduced that, remember, the self-healing network? Oh, it's self-healing network, okay, so don't worry about that. In Sydney, 4 years later on, we had the so-called the Year Decade and the Millennium Network. And there, instead of having this dedicated Olympic network that we had in Atlanta, they said, guess what? I'm going to use part of the public switch telephone network. The moment that they said that to the International Olympic Committee, is what? Now you're going to put this Olympic video and data, etc., as and you're going to use this PSTN. Yes, because this is a Millennium Network, etc. We're coming to 2002. US West back then, and now it's post September 11, few months after the games. Secret Service takes over the security of the Olympic networks, not the FBI anymore. And back then, US West decided to buy from Lucent designed the Olympic network for Salt Lake City. And there was Lucent equipment, and also they were monitored. Lucent was monitoring the network. So they buy these, I think, $5 million, 3 optical cross-connect systems that they already knew. They're going to give one to Denver, one to Minneapolis, and one to Seattle back then. How are you going to convince now the International Olympic Committee that putting this system into the network, okay, is not going to mess up with the reliability of the network, when in reality, in the bathtub reliability, the bathtub curve, it was the initial phase. And then another thing that they did back then was the use of satellites to secure remote fiber optic cables. Believe it or not, the fiber optic cables that were going above the mountain, they were monitored by, from satellites. So any change in the temperature on the snow meant that someone was going to sabotage the fiber optic cable. So they had the Black Hawk helicopters that they were secured in the air. And I have other stories to tell you in previous questions. Now, we're coming now, Summer Olympic Games 2004, birthplace of the Olympic Games. And back then, I spent a couple of years in Athens. I told them, you're not going to fight with the International Olympic Committee on new technology because you're the smallest country ever to host the Summer Olympic Games. So take what we had in the previous Olympiad, especially in the Atlanta. 4 years later on, okay, you have it in Athens. And they came back and said, oh no, we have to show that as a small country, we can have something brand new, okay, something to introduce in the history of the Olympic telecommunications that we can do. And they decided to bring 3G wireless technology to the games, believe it or not. And also they had the 3D video taping of the opening ceremonies. What you see right now, the 3D, back then the NBC and the other companies, they taped, first time ever, Olympic Games in the 3D video technology. It was amazing. And then also they went up to the Asian Olympia and they tried to have fiber optic cables from the Olympic stadium there. It was a nightmare with the archaeologists. Now, coming to the Summer Olympic Games in Beijing 2008, those are the first Olympic Games that they have full digital coverage, free available around the world. And all the know-how that we have from Athens and previous okay, it was transferred to China, and they had, as I said, the first digital games. Now, we're coming back here in Canada, 2010, and TELUS and Bell Canada, they fought who's going to be the Grand Telecom sponsor, and at the end, this Olympics, they're known as, it was a landmark event actually, in the emergence of mobile phones as a multimedia platform. What scared the most the International Olympic Committee was that as we're bringing these cellular phones, mobile phones, that now we have thousands of athletes walking into the stadium and they have their mobile phone, okay, to call. That was Athens. So we did the capacity planning. I mean, we tried to have the cell towers, mini cell towers, etc. But then, as we progressed towards Vancouver 2010, now they were afraid they're going to take video, and they tried to broadcast live with their cell phones. And here I am, okay, walking into the stadium, the Olympic Stadium, on video. So we didn't have the data to model how this could be done without affecting the capacity, in other words, during the Olympic Games. We go to the summer 2012 London Games, and then now we're in this cloud. And they have indeed a mix of the IT cloud and more old-style systems, okay, involving this Olympic network that, I mean, it was unique construction and maintenance. But for the first time, we have a 3D broadcast, and also the IEEE provided the broadcast, live broadcast of the games via the YouTube channel, and the digital broadcast exceeded the analog, so analog broadcast. So you see, I mean, how we're progressing, and we're pushing the envelope in every 2 years, Winter and Summer Olympic Games. In Sochi 2014, they had the mobile platforms to Olympic websites, and also the social media, okay, now comes into the picture for Olympic Games. Here we are, 2014, we have all these battles with the IOC, and all of a sudden, they decide to have the first European Games. I say first because we used to have for swimming, European swimming games in Barcelona, fine. But they never had all the games that you have in the Olympics a year before, okay? So Baku 2015, they have the Pan Asian Games, they have the Pan American Games, but not the European. And all of a sudden now, they try to say, why not go in fully cloud-based IT? We tried something in London. These are not Olympic Games. We're going to be the first one, okay, that we're going to use this technology. Now, the International Olympic Committee has nothing to do with these continental games. It's either the Asian Oceanic Olympic Committee, the European Olympic Committee, or the American Olympic Committee, North and South America. So finally, they say, who's going to pay the bill? Azerbaijan said $4.6 billion for the game, $360 million for telecommunications. So they go, they take all the requirements from London, they bring all the people from London, they have now a fully cloud-based IT, and if you go back in my Monday's roundtable talk, I explained what they did over there, and said, we're going to do it. You're going to do that? So for the first time, here we are in Baku, the International Olympic Committee, the European, the ASEAN, everybody, Rio, they come in just to see if this is going to happen or not, because the do I have the next one? Oh yeah. The 2018 Pyeongchang, South Korea Winter Olympic Games, they were supposed to have fully cloud, IT cloud. So here's Baku trying to steal the glory, okay, of the fully cloud-based. Okay. Well, the people, Korea Telecom was there, were trying to discuss, they were looking, they brought their own people. And now, if I'm looking towards the next coming years, maybe Korea Telecom is going to bring something as early implementation of the 5G, whatever is there, and they're going to say, we're the first company to introduce 5G in the Olympic Games. But already Tokyo, they have announced that they're going to have the 5G. Now, Korea is still in, the thunder from Tokyo. Maybe Tokyo is going to say we're going to do the standardized 5G. And then we have Beijing in 2022. And I was asking, Stephen, who is not here from the IEEE, if he has any insight, is Tokyo going to try to introduce SDN and NFV before them? And finally, just from curiosity, I put down there the 2024 Olympic Games that will be decided in September 2017, next year, in Peru. We have 4 candidate cities: Budapest, Hungary, Los Angeles, Paris, and Rome. And that's another thing, that we're looking forward to see what it's company going to do. And again, this is what I was saying before with the cables and something, okay, that it was state of the art, and we worked fighting for this. It became now the legacy. I mean, we say, can you use that? Now, briefly, usually whenever you bring new technology, for example, back then, we're saying protection, self-healing fibers, sonnet, HD rings, robustness, performance monitor. The IOC was coming back and said, wait a minute, but people make mistakes on new technology, they're not familiar. Management and operation support systems may not be there. The OSSs, you say, fine, you bring this, but you have legacy OSSs, or business support systems, okay? And difficulty in service provisioning, that's another thing, could result in outages. And then you're going to have mix of technologies no matter what you say. You bring this as a state of the art, but you're going to have mix of technologies. So my point was, yes, new technology can bring enormous reliability benefits to the network, but also can do a considerable amount of harm. I mean, the moment that you say that, then they understand that you're not, I mean, out there in the space, but you understand, okay, that yes, I'll do my best because this can happen hard. And this is actually what we did in Baku. And what happened is, in Baku, in reality, they had, they had their wide area network, 1 gigabit per second. They had the primary data center, second data center, with 10 gigabits per second, four lines there, and then you are going up to the point of present 1, point of present 2 to go to the cloud, and in the cloud you have all your services, so you have the primary path, the secondary path, and if you lose both of them, then all your monitoring and everything else was in the cloud. So in reality, you were in big trouble. Right? And again, we have the advantages that we told to the European Olympic Committee, the first ever cloud-based, and we have proved there's a viable network design because we tried in London, etc. Okay. But what we had the disadvantages, and we told them up front, at least we're sincere this time with the European Olympic Committee, is that there's unprecedented dependency on the partners there in Baku, that they were not sharing information. There was high risk of appetite in that country due to the very short time that they were put in that network. There was an issue with the inventory management because Cisco from the United States, they had to commit with the equipment that they brought there, and there was no supplier in-country presence. And the other thing is, usually within 3 months, we freeze the software. Over there, they were upgraded. So these are the technology-related challenges. I'm going to have convergence to SDN and LV, the wireless technology, the broadcasting technology, which is all high-definition coverage, optical switching. Another thing is the whole city, depending, as I said, it's going to be Budapest in 2024, or Los Angeles, or Paris, okay? And then at the end we have the government and language barriers and previous experience that we have. So as parting thoughts that I have here is, I would like to thank everybody for CQR for giving me the opportunity in the last of the year to come scream and say, I mean, here we are, this is what we're gonna do, or this is what we did, and we had a lot of presentation over the years. And believe it or not, up to 2000, all the information about the Olympic Games was passed from International Olympic Committee, from host city to host city. Never you could find any data. And we did a CQR conference, as you saw in Crete in 2000. We brought all the telecom managers from 1992, Lillehammer Winter Games, until the 2006 Winter Olympic Games, and we told them flat. Greece is going to get the Olympic Games 2004. You have to help by giving us the anecdotal stories and the near misses. In other words, you brought this technology. Can you tell us what went on? We had one magazine, the IEEE Communication magazine, and that was the best, I think, seller for communication magazine. Thank you very much. And,
Thank you. Thank you to Mike and the session speakers. We have about 5 minutes for questions if there are any.
Yeah, my question is primarily to Carmine and related to the element management systems for these legacy equipment. So how do you maintain those that are, some of them are running Windows 3.11,
There are,
1996?
yeah, there are a couple of types. First off, all equipment speaks command language, right, which is TL1 is what we use. So I can text to anything. It's about getting them on the network and getting remote visibility. Now, we do use a lot of graphical user interfaces and element management systems. And in some cases, what we've done is we've had vendors go back and add in products that, you know, here we're going to buy the new product, but you got to bring in this old product into this element management system as well. So in some cases, we go back and have the vendor to grow the new, you know, we're going to buy this new server to manage the new, you got to bring in the old so that we can use one system for your platforms. We have done that, but again, you know, sometimes it also comes down to, do we want to invest in that, and do we want to get that product out and move on to the next platform? So again, it's a great question, because not only do you have to manage the growth of the product, you have to manage the growth of the systems you use to support that product, as well as the software that you used for the local technicians to support that product, as well as your centers.
So I had a question for Michael. With regards to all of the restoration work that happens at the low-level electronic level, what is the testing process that you guys use to make sure that the before and after shows us a stoic improvement?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, in any repair environment, the base is test. So we have a test development lab that they start with making sure we can verify a piece is good, we can verify a piece is bad. So typically, you know, we do reverse engineer everything ourselves. So our R&D team will figure out the parameters, the specifications, whatever's published, work with the end customer, find out how they're using it, what software they're on, what configuration they're on, and they build a test based on the customer's configuration.
One last question, anybody?
Oh,
We can always count you.
thanks.
Already left, so.
Oh, right, yeah, we're our usual question generator left. Michael, when you're testing equipment, so I want to take this from the security or data privacy angle. If you have equipment, like storage equipment, SCSI drive you mentioned, that has potentially sensitive data on it, and it fails, but it doesn't catastrophically fail, like it's just a power supply issue or maybe a fan failure, and the data is still on the system. How do you go through that process of either data integrity or data privacy controls? Is it whoever your customer is that kind of dictates that to you?
Yeah, so it goes kind of both ways. Sometimes the customers are very specific and give us those instructions, and we follow them to their specifications. Other times the customers aren't so specific, so our R&D team kind of came up with best practices as far as, you know, making sure if we're going to wipe a drive, it's a DoD wipe. If we're going to scrap a drive, it's destroyed. So those practices are developed internally or could be dictated by the customer.
Okay, thank you very much.